Welcome back, guys, and welcome back to Al's Arcade for another, as promised, game room tour, which I'm super excited about. This one, though, is a little bit different, which is what I like to do because I like doing stuff that's a little bit different. We are going to visit a good friend of mine called Martin and his wonderful Hobby Lodge, and that is also the name of his YouTube channel. He's a great guy. I've been following Martin now for about, I don't know, a couple of years, and he's into pretty much everything that I'm into. But his focus is probably less towards arcades, but more towards the hobby of role-playing games and 8-bit games and all that kind of stuff, which I absolutely love. And you're going to get to see a lot of that today, but not so much of the arcade stuff. So if you're into arcade stuff, you still might like this. I mean, I find it entertaining seeing other people's games rooms anyway, and that's what it's all about. It's about really seeing how other hobbyists create their games room in a completely different way. And you might get some ideas of, if you're thinking of creating a games room, from watching some of these game room tours. And every game room is different, and every game room really is very special, because if it's well curated, then you get to see a bit of the personality of that person. And that's what I like. I like a well curated games room. And I think what you're about to see in this video is just that. So without further ado, let's get on the road and go and see Martin from the Hobby Lodge. Right, I've just stopped off for the obligatory naughty but nice section. That's right, guys. And you may be wondering why it's dark out there. It's because I filmed this at a different day. That's right, this is not Hollywood, guys. This is no blockbuster movie. This is Al's Arcade, and because it's Al's Arcade, we're going to tuck into this, guys. Look at this. A lovely custard donut. Oh my God, this is from a delicatessen quite close to me. And that is amazing. I don't know if you can see that. It's really dark in here. But you can't go wrong with a custard donut. Right, this is exciting. The old Hobby Lodge, there he is, look, working away on his figures. Oh. How you doing, Martin?
Hello, mate.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you here.
Oh, it looks very Christmassy and cosy in here.
Come on in.
Oh, look at this. Oh, mate.
Welcome to the Hobby Lodge.
This is the cosiest room I've ever been in. This is so cool. I don't know where to look. My first impressions walking into Martin's Hobby Lodge is absolutely amazing. It's an incredible room. It's so cool. It's so cozy and warm. I can imagine his whole family in here playing games together, and that's exactly what you want, a well-used, accessible room. How long have you had the Hobby Lodge?
Right. I'm pretty sure I built it in 2017. That's when I built it. Well,
Yeah.
I didn't build it, let's be frank. I paid someone to build it. So coming up on sort of, what's that, 7 years? I think?
7 years.
Yeah.
So it was a blank canvas, and did you have all this stuff before you built it, or was it all built up since you've had the lodge?
Definitely built up since I've had the lodge.
Yeah.
I've always had a games room in every house I've had, but in this house I was in the garage.
Right.
And I was amongst the bikes.
You weren't happy.
And the paints and all that sort of stuff. It was freezing cold. I had a garage door that I was behind the garage door, and I mostly had like a painting setup, so somewhere just to do painting of miniatures.
Yeah.
My wife was like, maybe you should get something a bit better, or get
A
out of the
man shed.
or get out of the house was one of the two things.
Yeah.
So we went with me building or getting this built at the bottom of the garden. So yeah.
It's cosy in here. This must be well insulated, or is it the games that are insulating it?
It could be the stuff. It could be the stuff making it feel close.
So you're a YouTuber. You're into retro games. You're also into fantasy role-playing games, which is what I was into when I was a kid. Although I'm slightly jealous of you because it's something I'd love to get into now, but I just don't have the time with everything else. But I just love watching you do a lot of painting, don't you, on YouTube? And you play a lot of role-playing games on here with your family,
Yep.
which is really nice.
We're pretty much into everything that's nerdy, like video games, board games, tabletop war games, 3D printing, just everything, toys, games, the whole lot. This is a proper nerd sort of lodge. There we go. Yeah.
Well, let's start. I don't know where to start. Let's start on the main table itself then, right? So this is where you play most of your board games. Do you play a lot of the early games, or is this a lot of new games as well? So you play Warhammer?
Yeah, it's a pretty much everything. So the table is a 6x4 foot table, which for anyone who's into tabletop wargaming is kind of the standard size. Yeah. If you like playing Warhammer 40k or that sort of stuff, right? So a 6x4 table, and then we can then adjust its size based on the game we're playing. So a lot more modern games are more like coffee, they call them coffee table type games. So they fit on like a 3x3 or 3x4.
Yeah.
So we kind of do that by using the terrain or even the mat to then make the table as it needs to be. So for this game in front of you, the Rangers of Shadowdeep, is a fairly new game. It's been around for about 3-4 years. Uses a smaller size table. Right. So we just use the rocks and the trees or whatever it is we've got to define the size of the table.
So I guess the bigger the space you use on the table, the larger or the longer it takes to play a game.
Often, yes. So if you're moving, because if I was this side of the table with my huge army, there's a good chance that's probably going to take a few hours to play that kind of game.
Yeah.
Where this game here is probably more like an hour to an hour and a half to play, depending on what you're doing. So a lot of people, and my family included, we've kind of gone to these smaller games because one, you don't need 4 or 5 hours in the day to play it. The requirements to build a nice table, paint miniatures, is a lot less, so you can do a lot more with it. So
So tell me about some of the favourite games you like playing on this table, some of the role-playing games.
Yeah, the one we love the most at the moment is a game called Moonstone.
Moonstone, have you got a box of that?
Yeah, I can grab you a box of that. So Moonstone is a very whimsical game. So if you want to see any miniatures, that's pretty much all of the ones from the front run here. Yeah, you can go and see them.
That's a lovely box art, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's the whole rules in this box?
Yeah, it's just the rules and the cards, and then it's up to you to then make your tables however you want.
Right, and these are the figures for the actual game?
So that whole sort of front row here.
Wow, and you've painted all of these?
Yes, I have, yes.
My God, Martin, it's incredible.
It's a very whimsical game. So think of like Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, the Jim Henson world is a very much an influence in this game. And it's a really fun. Up? Yeah, of course you can, yeah.
Because this guy here looks super cool. Look at this. Looks like a jester. Isn't that cool? The highlighting is fantastic. And I love the way you've done the kind of fantasy grass.
Well, so the key there is the game Moonstone is about this mystical gems that are fallen from the sky, and they've infused the ground with magic. Right. So I thought I'd use the pink and blue grass to sort of show that it's not normal grass. It's kind of it's been infused with magic, as it were. So that was an idea I had to do that. So, but it's a really fun game, and it's got like the best thing about it is the bluffing mechanic in there. So when I cast spells at you or you cast them back, you don't tell each other what strength or what you're casting. And I have to kind of guess, and you can lie, and there's a whole piece in there around bluffing your opponent. Right. And if you get it wrong, they get to do something. And if you get it right, you get to do something. So it's got a really nice mechanic in there.
And it's all played out on here?
All played on the table. Very similar setup, actually, to this. It's quite a small game. You randomise a lot of the things, and you go at each other. But it's about collecting the moonstones. So you can try and kill each other, but actually the winner is the person with the most moonstone at the end of the game. Yeah. So it's that balance of, do I attack, defend, do I go and get the moonstone, do I try and bluff my opponent into what I'm trying to achieve? There's a nice kind of play in there. It's a really fun game, it really is.
Awesome. What I love about Martin's collection is it's pretty much everything that I love. If I had more space, I would have this set up as well, because it is so cool. He's got all his role-playing games, but not only that, he's got a lovely 8-bit setup here. even though he's picked the wrong computer. It's a Commodore 64. I was more of a Sinclair Spectrum guy back in the day, but if you had both systems, you pretty much played the same games. And this setup he's got here is absolutely awesome. I noticed you've got a really cool 8-bit micro section in your games room. And it's all Commodore 64 mainly, is it? Is that the system you had back in the day?
It is. So this is the first. So we definitely had older computers when I was younger, but I can't really say they were mine. They were more my brother's or my dad's. So the Commodore 16, the ZX81. But my first system that I would definitely say was mine was the Commodore 64. So I wanted to build what is known as Commodore Corner. So everything here is Commodore based and kind of, I'm not going to say the era because it's kind of a mix of eras, but it's kind of, I want it to feel like an old school computing area. So you've got even like little toys like the Muscle Men, the Monsters in My Pocket, Garbage Pail Kids. It's probably the later end of the Commodore 64, definitely the late 80s and stuff like that. But that was the point, to kind of make a dedicated area for the Commodore 64. I can sit here, play some of the games I loved playing back in the day, and even now, obviously, the new homebrew stuff that's coming out for the Commodore 64, which I actually love as well. So, yeah, that's Commodore Corner. Also, grab some of the hit squads. You've got things like R-Type, Tubing, which is a great game, even on the arcade, but certainly on the 64 as a two-player game. I really enjoyed playing that. Navy Moves, ridiculously hard game, but a great one. Stunt Car Racer, of course, and then even some that I discovered that I didn't know, like SDI. It's a really cool shooter, a bit different in how it plays, but a really great little shooter on the Commodore 64. So once I'd done Commodore Corner, I wanted to continue the theme across and build a dedicated space for the Amiga. So this is where this came into play. So I now have what's called the Amiga Workbench, named after the operating system that was on the Amiga. Continue just the piece of wood across, put it in place, new screen, and then yeah, built this dedicated space. So again, trying to keep it themed to that. So with the Amiga Workbench clock in there, and obviously the games above, loads of boxed games, just a collection of stuff that I really loved playing back in the day. Of course, we've got the Vectrex in as well, which I got from a really nice guy. So I wanted to have a dedicated space for the Vectrex because it's such a glorious little machine. It felt like something I wanted to be able to come up and play at any time. And actually my kids love playing it as well. So with it here, it's easy accessible. You can fire it up, have a play, and away you go. Yeah, across the top here, we've got a bunch of games, like not a huge collection, but to me, it's a pretty good showing of the sorts of things that were on the Amiga back in the day. So some great games in there. Obviously, things like the Cannon Fodders, the Syndicate, Sensible Soccer, Simon the Sorcerer, probably one of my favourite point-and-click adventures. I know lots of people love the Monkey Island games, and they are fantastic, but I really feel like it sort of, Simon the Sorcerer, because of that fantasy background for me, it really worked. So yeah, just more of that continuation. Some other classics up the top here. Kickoff 2. There's always a debate. Is it Sensible Soccer? Is it Kickoff 2? I'm probably in the Kickoff 2 camp of favourite football games. And another classic.
I've noticed you've got North and South, which I'm sure I played on the NES.
Yeah, I think it came out on most systems.
Yeah, it's a really good game, isn't it? I've discovered it fairly recently.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I think it's most systems it came out on back in the day. And again, homebrew on the Amiga is still really prevalent. So there's some great games like Black Dawn here, Technomage is another one that came out recently. And this is kind of like a dungeon crawler, but set in a cyberpunk sort of world. So really, really cool.
I love cyberpunk.
Yeah. So
it's a lovely box, isn't it?
It is great. And it's always nice to see new games coming out for old systems. I think it's such a nice
what keeps
thing.
them fresh, keeps them going.
Yeah. So
it's brilliant.
There we go.
This is a very personal room to Martin. There's a lot of nostalgia in this room for Martin, but also it's a very well curated room, which I absolutely love. And one of the standout features in this room is his collection of hand-painted Citadel miniatures.
This is just a simple IKEA display cabinet with some extra shelves in it, so that I could try and get as many miniatures that I've painted over the years in there. Believe it or not, this is just a small selection of them because I have drawers and drawers of miniatures that I've painted. And sometimes I've had times where I've done almost 400 or 500 miniatures a year.
Wow.
So yeah, it can get a bit crazy.
And how long have you been painting? Is that
Since 2015. Yeah.
yeah? And did you play Dungeons and Dragons at school? Was there any
A
of
little
those?
bit, yeah.
Yeah.
The game I played the most was Hero Quest.
Wow.
So
yeah.
as a kid, I had a Hero Quest game. In fact, I do have Hero Quest up there, and that's fully painted as well. I've sat and painted all of that in a very kind of 80s style. But in 2015, my wife bought me a box called Isle of Blood, which was a Warhammer Fantasy box set. It had High Elves, which are down the bottom there, and it had Skaven, which are in my son's room. So that kind of got me into it. So from there, I just started picking up other armies and other games. Right. And of course, like
you didn't
anyone...
play Dungeons and Dragons at school then?
No.
So you're probably a little bit younger than me.
Yeah. It wasn't.
So it was huge in the 80s.
Yeah.
And it was all new and fresh, and all the kids were in it. We had D&D classes after school, which was pretty cool.
Nice.
And I used to go to Games Workshop in Hammersmith, which was the only Games Workshop in the country. We used to get on a 267 bus from Twickenham to Hammersmith and get all the latest Citadel Miniatures, Raoul Parker figures. And I've still got them today. Some of them are pretty badly painted, but I was only 13, 14 at the time.
Absolutely.
But the way you've done these, mate, it's very impressive. Is that all self-taught, or is it just...
Yeah, it's just going and just picking up the brushes and doing it and trying out different techniques. Like this one here, I painted this. I painted this for Halloween, and I thought I would try something different. I wanted to paint something that looked like it was almost energy was coming from within and underneath, almost like, so normally you would go dark underneath and light on top because that's where your light source is, but I wanted this to feel like it'd risen out of the ground and there was like an ethereal light around it. So I just tried it. I used the airbrush. I painted light from underneath and then dark from the top and highlighted in various areas, and I think it kind of worked. It was like, you know what, that looks kind of what I was after.
Very cool, mate.
So
very cool.
Yeah, there's tons of YouTubers out there and Twitch streamers that are painting all the time, and you kind of learn techniques from them. But a lot of it is just having a go. Certainly, if I was to pick out old miniatures, I could see how I've changed painting over the years.
Have you got any lead ones in here? Because that's what they used to be made of.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely got some metal miniatures in here, but I might have some old lead ones around, definitely, yeah.
Oh, it's amazing, mate. I love these up here. Look at this.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
He doesn't fit in the cabinet, unfortunately.
It's too hard. It's too big.
Yeah, but this is Archeon. He's like, he's got this, a dragon that represents the 3 different chaos gods, and yeah, he's huge. So that's a whole devil's army, and believe it or not, I painted him in about 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
Using, there's new paints that they're called speed paints or contrast paints. There's different brands for different companies, but when they came out, it made painting really, not, I'm going to say simple, but a lot easier.
Yeah.
So and then things like an airbrush. Once you learn how to use an airbrush, you can paint a lot faster as well.
Yeah.
Because things like these wings, it was all done with an airbrush.
Yeah.
Because doing it with a brush would take you quite a long time.
And so, you do get a better effect sometimes.
You do. Your blending's better. You know, you get an more even coat when you use an airbrush. So yeah, there's a whole lot of miniatures in there. But like I say, it's a small selection of the ones. And there's different games. There's Bushido here, so this is your feudal Japan game, almost like a fancy base. These are your classic Warhammers, so you've got a Nurgle army, a Chaos army, your Necrons, your Sigmarites, and so on. And there's even some, if you come right the way down, there's even some World War II in here as well, including, this is actually painted by my dad, of when he was in the army, and the scout car that he used to drive. So this area is 3D printing. So something I got into maybe 5 years ago, and for miniature hobbyists, it's a fantastic thing. All the terrain you can see on this table is 3D printed. So these aren't the original ones I had, but these are newer versions over the years. So we have what's called an FDM printer. So it prints the classic filament, melts this, builds things like my little brackets here that you've seen up in the walls. So that's what they were done on. And then this one here is a resin printer. So this is much more for printing actual models. So it will take a liquid vat and slowly print out a model from that. So I can show you examples of that a bit later on. But yeah, and then this is a washing station. So obviously you're dealing with, not so much in this area, but this one here you're dealing with liquid resin, which is obviously very dangerous. So we have things like this wash and cure station, so you can wash the resin off and then cure it with UV light. So really handy to have this machine. If you ever get into this, I'd definitely recommend it. But yeah, that's my kind of 3D printing area.
Wow. I've seen some of the things you've been making for it, and super functional stuff that you need throughout the house, not just in the hobby.
Well, certainly, yes.
You know, a part gets broken, you can easily replace it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've printed all things. So for instance, if you look up in the ceiling here, this microphone, the ceiling mount is a 3D printed ceiling mount. And it prints it well enough that it can print the thread for the screw. So I literally drilled it into the ceiling and then just screwed the mic on. So just simple little things that you might need, you can just 3D print them.
Yeah.
You know?
Incredible. Everything set up in this room is ready to go. Pick up and play. There's no messing about with cables or leads. It's all hooked up, ready to play at the push of a button. And every nook and cranny in this room has something of curiosity. It's such an amazing room. It's a gaming emporium of retro goodness. It's just so cool.
So this side of the room is one where I do all my painting. So ignore all the Christmas presents under the desk at the moment. It's that time of year. You can date this video by the Christmas decorations.
Look at all those.
But yeah,
you haven't wrapped them though. You've just used bags.
I know it's a hack.
I know what you're up to.
It's a tip for any of you out there watching. Don't wrap things. Put them in bags. Yeah, so this is where I sort of have a dedicated space. So if you do watch me live stream or anything like that, this is where I'm at. So I have the painting table here, all of the paints I use, my airbrush, and just all the bits of kit that I have to use whilst doing it. So yeah, it's really nice to have just an area set up ready to go.
Yeah, you've got everything set up from cameras. I noticed you've got loads of cameras in here.
So I'm lazy, which means that if I want to stream, I want to make a video, I want to be good to go from the moment I decide to do it. Yeah. So everywhere in this room, there's multiple, I think there's 5 different camera angles in this room. There's 3 different microphones in this room, so that I can just, at a moment, turn it on and get going, rather than having to set up. So yeah, and as you come down, this is kind of also where I work every day as well. So it's set up for multiple things. I have the Amiga 1200 there, I have an old retro PC, I have my working PC, I have just a bunch of other miniatures that I've painted, bits of toys, bits of memorabilia. These are all of
games up here as well.
These are nice. These are all events that I've been to for the tabletop hobby. So the past few years, we've all met up in Ireland and gone to these kind of big gaming events. Cool. And they've been really good fun.
More board games up there.
More board games.
PC games. I mean, there's games everywhere. You've used up every nook and cranny.
Yes.
In this games room.
Yeah. So this was a bit of a hack I did, where I 3D printed, and that's an area we'll come on to. Because obviously when you have games in shelves, you have to have tons and tons of room. Yes. And I looked at this one day and was like, you know what, I'm not using the space in the ceiling. And because it's not a high ceiling, I mean, I can reach, obviously I can touch the ceiling. I decided to 3D print all of these brackets, and they are perfect for holding your games. So I can have like a PS3 area, a PS4, PS5, PS2 and Wii. Xbox. On your side you've got the PC and an Xbox One area, so it just means I don't have to have shelving of video games. I can use the space I have for more usable stuff, you know.
It's incredible, mate. You've got games everywhere.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I was thinking, could I do this in my games room? I don't think I can. My ceiling's not tall enough. It's literally just a few inches above my head.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely incredible. And then you've got a big screen over here. You can play arcade games. Show us what you do when you want to play arcade games.
Like I say, everything in this room has either certainly a double function, but normally more than that. So this is here is just a flip-up table, which is really nice to have your dice tray on or your rules book. But another thing we use it for is for an arcade stick. So we pick up the arcade stick. I have the leads right here for it, so I can plug in whatever I need to plug in. So I have power, I have HDMI, I even have an extension for USB, and then that can then be captured onto the big screen.
incredible.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely amazing, mate. It really, really is. And it's probably one of the most cosiest, warmest games rooms I've ever been in. And I absolutely love it. It's full of you.
Yes.
And it's well curated. And it's fully functional, accessible. It's brilliant. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, guys, this is what you can do with a small space. Martin has done such a fantastic job. Thank you so much for inviting me here. It's incredible.
Thanks for having me. Cheers, mate. Thanks for coming. I can't get it out.
I can edit it in.
I can't get it out. Let me pull out.
Finders keepers. Well, it's not very It's not very practical, is it?
That tape is actually the one tape I pick is the one tape that's actually stuck. Well, you got to keep this. This is like a proper blooper. This is. I can't get that tape.
You can't get out.
I can't get that tape out. That is proper stuck in there.
Long fingernails.
Yeah.
Well, that's it, guys. What a fantastic room. That really, really was. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. Martin, thank you so much for inviting us into your room and showing your wonderful hobby lodge. It really is something very special. And I can see how you spend most of your time in there. I would. Martin works in there and he plays games in there. I wish I could work in my games room, but I can't do that, unfortunately. But no, very, very cool, Martin. Absolutely loved it. And guys, if you want to see more game room tours, check out, I've got a playlist on the channel. There's plenty more to see. Get to see how other people collect, see how they arrange their rooms, and get an idea if you're thinking of creating your own game room. I absolutely love it. I love to meet people. I like to get out and about, meet people, and see their collections, because everyone collects in a completely different way, and no one has a right way. There is no right way to collect. Everyone does it differently, and that's what I absolutely love. So Martin, thank you so much. That's it for this week's video, guys. Hopefully I will get a live video out, possibly next weekend. We're going to go live, so look forward to that. Other than that, take care, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.